Take me down to the river.
Way better.
Hello, cousin.
Hi.
Hello, cousin.
Hi, cousin.
Hi, cousin.
Hi, cousin.
Hello, cousin.
All right, well, we should probably tell the story about the Terry Fox Memorial and when we went there. How old were you, Laura?
You know what? I don't really recall. I might have been 12, maybe younger. I don't know.
I think that sounds about right. If I go by height in the picture, because I've seen a picture of us at the memorial, that looks about right. But I mean, people aren't like trees. You can't just count their rings, and we're going to have to guess because we don't have good memories about what year it was.
And we're not amputating to check out the skin layers, so
No.
yeah.
My skin is far too thin for doing that kind of stuff. So
Yes. It was 1774.
It's approximately that. I just remember being excited to bring Deets to the homeland of T-Bay. And then, of course, what better activity than to go visit the Terry Fox Monument? It's beautiful. It overlooks Lake Superior. You can see the sleeping giant in the background. And I just remember thinking, this is one of those classic things you do when you go to Thunder Bay. You go see Terry Fox and bring your cousins, right?
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was my first trip to Thunder Bay, so obviously we had an itinerary planned of all the highlighted places that we wanted to hit, of which one of them was the Terry Fox Memorial. And I was thinking about, just being a kid, and I mean, I was 6 when Terry Fox did his run across Canada, and I remember him, but I don't remember it super strongly. I think I remember more watching like shows about him as a young adult and just kind of learning about what his run was all about, and then ultimately how his cancer returned and took his life, but how he had made such an impact on the country and had raised a substantial amount of money. I think what I read was it had grown to over 60 countries across the world now fundraise in his name for cancer research. So, I mean, it's a pretty big deal. And so we were going to go to this memorial. It's at the point where he stopped, wasn't it, Kerry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just outside of Thunder Bay on the east side.
Mm-hmm. So we arrived there, and it was in the fall, I think. It wasn't a super hot day. We walked up to the memorial, and there was I think one other person there besides us, and she was an older lady. She was quite emotional, and I think that being having been so young when Terry Fox did his run, I felt excited and interested to see the memorial and kind of experience it, but I didn't have that emotional witness to every the entirety of the impact of his life. And this woman was standing there, and she was crying quite openly, and she said he was a wonderful person, such a wonderful person. That's all she said to us. And like I said, she was crying, and she walked away. Well, lo and behold, not even like 2 minutes later, she comes back and she kind of apologized to us and says, "I don't normally do this kind of thing, but I'm driving cross country. I'm going to see her estranged husband, who is, I believe he was in hospital or hospice, and he was dying. And she was driving straight from BC to Toronto, or Toronto to BC. I can't remember. Kerry, do you know that detail?
I think she was going to BC.
She had to have been in her 80s. And she said, "Could one of you, I would normally not ask this, but could you rub my back? I'm in a lot of pain right now." And Kerry looked at her and said, "Sure." And without missing a beat, said she'll do it, and pointed at
It's
me.
true.
You give great back rubs. What can I say?
I might have said okay, but it was the funny part was that I was volunteered. So here we are at the Terry Fox Memorial. We've barely been there like 2 seconds, and I'm rubbing this stranger's back while we sit there and we're talking and just kind of getting to know one another.
Hmm.
She was not a young lady, and
You could tell by the feel of her bones, probably.
there was yeah, I was going to say there wasn't much to her. So like
Yeah.
she was basically just muscle and bone. I felt really kind of, it was the nicest thing I've probably done that year, was to give this poor traveler a back rub. But while I was giving her a back rub, she proceeded to tell us a story about a trip that her and her estranged husband and their son had taken to Europe when her son had been younger, where I don't even know how to start this story because it was so bizarre and funny and random. She started out by saying that her son was an amateur taxidermist and that when they were in Europe, he had caught a swordfish. And I guess the laws at the time were that you couldn't taxidermy your own fish. You had to take it to a place in that country and have it shipped back to you wherever you were going to. But because he was an amateur taxidermist, he decided that he wanted to do it himself. So I guess he filleted it and rolled it up and somehow made it small enough that it would fit into her luggage. She said she left every single piece of clothing that she had in Europe
Mhm.
to accommodate this swordfish so he could smuggle it back. And we were like, by the time, she was ready to hop on the road again, we were all laughing, but such a bizarre, I don't know, really funny experience with somebody that was a complete stranger to us only like half an hour beforehand, and now we were all chumming it up and laughing. And she walked away. She was, in a much
Mhm.
better state of mind, I think, and
Mhm.
emotionally when she left. It was such a funny story. I don't think you'd get away with doing that now.
I don't think so. Like, and that's the thing. I think how in the world would they have done that? How do you take, and I'm kind of
I
I
was
don't know.
talking to Carolyn about this, and we kind of figured that he must have gutted it,
Yeah.
removed
Oh,
all
I would
of
assume so.
the spine and everything, and rolled it up somehow.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the smell?
That's what I was just thinking.
I would have been like, keep that luggage. I don't want it back
It's
ever.
all yours, baby. I was just thinking that. I'm like, did he have it in a giant Ziploc? And like, you have to think, how many years ago was that too? Like, so long ago.
It must have been a small swordfish, because
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
aren't their their beaky noses pretty long? Like that's something that we definitely need. Maybe it was in a
Or
suit
large
hanging
luggage.
thing.
If someone who knows this whole story is listening to this ever, please contact us. We need to know more.
Yeah. Yes. Maybe that's it. That's what I want to imagine now. And why didn't we ask these questions then? I don't know. Maybe we were too stunned.
I'm gonna do some research and I'll publish how to smuggle a swordfish. Although I don't think that you could get
I don't
away
think
with it in
so.
modern times, because you can't take liquids on a plane. I don't think you can take. This was back when the world was the wild west of
Yeah, this was
travel,
pre
and
9/11. It's funny to me when you tell a story, although the three of us were there and you did tell it correctly, there were details that I didn't remember, like how she had been near us and was crying and, came up and said he was a wonderful man or a wonderful person. I didn't remember that.
she was there, and like obviously being older than us, because at the time you and I were
Hmm.
in our early
So like
20s.
5 years
Yeah,
ago.
exactly. 4 for me, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
She was much older, so I mean that history to her was probably a lot clearer than it was to us who were infants at the time that it had actually happened. But I mean, when I was in elementary, I remember doing jump rope for heart.
Yeah, but
Did they have
that's
that in your
yes,
schools?
but jump rope for
Yeah.
heart isn't
We did
yes.
the Terry Fox walk for our.
Oh.
They do.
See, this is why I have to talk to you guys, because I get mixed up sometimes. So you have to
They
participate.
still do Terry Fox walk here at our school anyway too, yeah.
They do here as well.
I'll probably just edit that part out.
Please don't.
That's probably for the best.
So that I want to sound as smart as both of you.
Yeah, okay, you can edit it out. It was really funny though.
It can be an outtake. We'll have an outtake reel at some point.
The thing that was most impressive to me, being, someone that lived on the prairies my entire life and not having really traveled within Canada. I mean, we went on a trip to BC when I was probably 14 or 15. Really, I hadn't left the province since that point in time, but I'd never gone east. So it was really interesting to me. Like, the trees just blew me away. And we make this joke about, hey, Manitoba, we live in Manitoba where you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. But it was like, if the dog had run away on that road trip, we never would have seen it again. We'd have a better chance of seeing a moose before we saw the dog again. There were so many trees, and that was something that was just really, I couldn't understand how someone could come from living in such a dense forested area to living on the plains of Manitoba, where it's, for the most part, it's pretty flat, and you don't feel so surrounded.
I was just gonna say that when I first moved out west, I remember when you get to that point on the highway where the trees stop, and I felt so exposed. And then after living in the prairies for so long, sometimes when I'm traveling home, I'm like, oh, I'm getting hugged now. It's almost like the trees are like, attacking me
Yes.
or something. But there was this one time I was driving back to Winnipeg from Thunder Bay, and I remember leaving my mom her standing in the driveway, and usually that makes me cry because I think of her alone, of course, and me leaving her again. But I didn't cry until we got to that same mark where the trees stop, and I just remember thinking, why is my face wet? And I was crying. I was leaving the trees, and I just remember going, oh my gosh, my whole body's having this reaction to leaving the trees, and I was just sobbing without even realizing why. It was one of those really weird moments, but something that makes you realize that your people, your home, they're not just where you are, it's totally within you.
We're tied to our surroundings as well.
Yes. So the first time I went to Manitoba by car, you do feel that. You feel that exposure, right? But now I feel this sense of excitement when I see that no tree line flatness because I'm getting closer to you guys, and that makes me want to ball my face off.
Yay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there is an openness about it for sure that, you don't even realize. And then, Laura, like if we wanted to get all, weepy and freaky deaky about things, you didn't meet Gran, and she was, this is
Yes.
her mother home. And so I sometimes think about that as much as I preach about Ontario and it being home. This is like a huge, a quarter of our DNA is from here. And so it's interesting that could be part of it as well as like a return to a home.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
We were talking about smuggling, and it helped me to remember an experience I had when I was like I was a teenager. I was still in college, and for a while there, I worked at one of those fruit truck stands on the highway. And we were just talking about
Great.
smuggling swordfish, but I met a lot of people working at this fruit stand, and some of them were pretty interesting. I remember this one truck driver, and this is where the smuggling comes in, who pulled up to buy some fruit, and he proceeded to tell me how to smuggle drugs. I was like, I think I was like 17 and I'm thinking, how would I even why would I be smuggling them, you know?
You never know.
But anyway, the secret, and I'm going to reveal it here on this podcast, apparently is coffee. So you pack it in coffee and the dogs can't smell it. But I was like, okay. I don't know what this fellow must have thought. Like he was just trying to impress me or something, but it was really funny. Just like a random, hey, do you want to know how to smuggle drugs? Sure. Do you want peaches? I didn't know what to say to him. It was funny. You grew up just on the cusp of, before people published everything on the internet. So
Yeah, I did. And that's been a wild experience in itself.
Tine, do you have a story of strangers?
I have so many stories of strangers, and I think we kind of touched about that before. I also recently published a blog about meeting people on the Greyhound, and I have several travel stories, but I just wrote one up before we started chatting, and I'll publish it soon after this gets published, about a little experience I had yesterday when I was buying snails at the store, and this guy just kind of unpacked.
Why were you buying snails?
Okay, so I was buying snails because I have 2 fish tanks right now, and I have a weird algae problem that's just overabundant in one of them, and I thought it was time to get a snail for one tank, but why not? Why can't the other fish have a friend, right? So I ended up getting 2. Plus, taking care of 2 tanks right now is a little bit excessive. So yeah, I was buying these snails for my tank, which are doing an amazing job, by the way. Their names are Gary and Turbo. And
I'm thinking one is faster than the other.
Well, one is faster than the other, and one is significantly smaller than the other. I can't get a good picture of them, but I did add a picture of Turbo in on my blog post, so you'll see him. He's pretty cute. They're nearite snails, and I did a lot of research about what snails to get, and it's been kind of a process. I've been talking about doing this for about 6 months now, and here we are. 6 months later. But I had this experience yesterday and I wrote about it, but this guy essentially cut in line in front of me. He asked if he could, and I said, yeah, go ahead, because he was in a bit of a rush and he just needed to get some crickets, and I was like, she had to dig my snails out of a tank. It wasn't really that long of a process. So he turns to me and he goes, how are you guys doing through all this, blah, blah, blah. And then we have a little bit of chit chat that way, and he's just like unloads his big huge story on me, which I wrote about. But essentially his wife passed away in February, and he's now a single dad of a 9-year-old boy, and we just had this experience, and I didn't ask him anything beyond, well, how is it going for you? And it's just so fascinating that we always attract these people, the 3 of us specifically, but also I know of others that do, who just feel safe and comfortable telling us all of these ridiculously personal details, intimate details. That was an experience. And it's not the first or the last time that's happened. I'm sure we all have 100 stories like that. And it's like 2 ships passing in the night, just total strangers. Here's my life story. I got it a lot when I was working in retail as well. People would just come in and, I need this product, but I need this product because such and such has happened. Like there is a story and a reasoning behind it, like a purpose. And I didn't need to know the purpose most of the time.
It's amazing how much people are willing to share with complete strangers. And I wonder if that's partly because they know you're never going to see that person again.
Yes.
I remember getting internet in a house a couple of houses ago. And there's gentleman came in, and I thought, I'm never going to see this guy ever again. And so I was asking him a lot of questions and letting the kids be terrors and all this, just thinking, I will never see this person again. So what does it matter? Let's, tell each other our life stories. Except for then I did see him again because he ended up being the dad of like one of the kids in the preschool, and it was funny. And in fact, that was I don't know, 11 years ago, and we just went to their 25th wedding party last August. So yeah, we did see them again, but for the most part, you don't really see that person again. And I think we as like the human race, become a safe space to unload where maybe they couldn't share those details. I'm thinking kind of this experience with this man who's now, a solo parent. Could he really have that conversation, as intimate of a conversation with
Yes,
people in his family? Maybe, maybe not, right? So I think it's important for us to be that harbor for folks that, and I think sometimes we don't really have a choice in that,
absolutely.
but what a gift.
I haven't had the opportunity to meet as many people like in the community anymore. So my conversations tend to be I tend to be the person having more of those conversations with other people. I'm thinking specifically of our hairdresser. Like it's not that I like unload on people or anything like that, but my ability to like socialize with people has been really limited just from being at home. So when I do get out, I find I tell the hairdresser absolutely everything that's going on, talking about any upcoming
Mhm.
art show, or if I'm talking about art, or if I'm talking about family, whatever it is that I'm thinking about at the time, whatever person is helping me out service wise, whether, and maybe it's a doctor, I don't know, it's like wherever I can get my kind of social interaction lately, just under these new world circumstances, I take it, and who cares, right? Like I think the point is really that if more people had these kind of conversations with other people, there wouldn't be so much divide in the world, because we'd be able to see each other as human beings and having the same kind of, day-to-day struggles as everyone else. Lots of people have things that they're carrying in their lives that they, maybe they want to talk about it, and like Laura said, or like Kerry said, that they can't talk to somebody else about it.
I remember being pregnant with Wyatt, and I had found out that we were having a boy, and Rick didn't want to know.
Yep.
What a jerk I am, hey? Like, it's too bad. I want to know. And I remember going to, if I was at a grocery store, people, and I was obviously pregnant, so thankfully for that, people would say, "Oh, do you know what you're having?" And if Rick wasn't with me, I was so excited to say, "Yes, I'm having a boy. I have a boy, and I'm so excited they're going to be brothers." And I'd probably start crying or something. And I don't think I told anybody his name, but when Wyatt was born, Rick announces, "It's a boy." And I'm like, "I know, his name is Wyatt." But that need to tell people things, like, I think it's real. It could be why we have, I think of social media. This is what I ate for dinner.
To
People just
connect.
have that need to share.
And I think it's the connection too, without like, yeah, some people need to share because they need their problem solved, but sometimes they're sharing to share. And we kind of touched on that before. So, yeah, how we become those safe spaces. But it's just fascinating how people choose those people. Like, this was some guy that asked in front of me at a pet store, or some lady that was sitting at Terry Fall. Like, these aren't places where you would think that you would find these people, and you do.
Well, and I think that is what, you know, being with strangers is. There's just things we can't explain. There's, this experience that Tine told us. Right place, right time. It can't always be explained, and I don't think it needs to be, but it's being there for people when they need us the most. And part of that is, maybe it's our part of our gift, going back to when we were talking about your grandmother being, this professional people watcher. I think that we have that gift inside of us, and many others do as well, to be a watcher, but also to be able to be welcoming. I think of that
Yeah.
with all of our mothers, that ability to for kindness for strangers, kindness for others, that maybe they didn't always give to self, but they definitely did for other people. I can remember someone coming into our house, and I was just very, very little, and they had hit the ditch. It was winter, and I'm not sure if they had gone to other homes or not, but they eventually landed at our place, and we have a very long driveway, so they made their way up to the house for a phone call. My mom invited them in, and of course, what else do you need? Do you need food? Let me make you a cup of coffee, whatever it was. And that, I honest to goodness would have been maybe 4 or 5, and I still remember that. And she was home alone, and just recognizing the need that people have. I think it's a gift. Can't pick up your mic to join us on air? Pick up your keyboard and write us a blog. Visit hellocousin.org for all the details.